This is Cody with F is for Fanatic. Please, please, please go check out White and Sons Wood Creations for all your custom signs. They do college football, NFL, any wood creation sign that you need. It's all LED. It's wife and a husband. They do it at home. They get the kids involved. You can literally watch your sign being made on their Twitch account. Made in the USA, right out of Georgia. Really, really good stuff. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Seth. We're going to be breaking down some film on Graham Mertz, and then we are going to break down Mr. Austin Armstrong's defense. I'm super excited to have Seth on. Thank you so much, Seth. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy talking a little ball, and Florida's got some intriguing storylines at quarterback and defensive coordinator. It's always fun to be able to throw something on and talk about it.
Gotcha. So, real fast before we get into this, it's kind of funny. My dad's a UW was alum,
Okay.
so he knows all about Mertz. Not the greatest stuff. What's your feeling after you broke down the film? A lot of people were not high on him. They don't realize that Wisconsin has probably the worst offensive line that they've had in 60 years. Their tight end, he had a tight end, Ferguson, end up going to the draft. That was kind of his safety blanket, and they had no wide receivers whatsoever. And then when they did, they were running real deep routes for some reason, not giving him any help, right?
Yeah, I thought watching it that he makes some, and we'll show it here tonight too. He does some good stuff. I think he's talented, but kind of digging into his background a little bit, it certainly seemed like he was trying to kind of fit him. He was kind of a square peg in a round hole a little bit. He was, I think, like all shotgun spread quarterback in high school. Wanted to go to Wisconsin to get in the pro style offense and prepare himself for the NFL. I think his freshman year, or the kind of the first year he played, they were a little bit better around him, and so he was able to make some plays and things like that. But he still had some freshman mistakes, and then they got worse around him. The last couple years, last year in particular, I thought they were, like you said, it was not, when you think Wisconsin, you think a great offensive line and really good running game. It wasn't really that. You have a good back there, but the offensive line was not kind of up to their normal standard. So he struggled a little bit with that, got pressured a ton, and then you didn't have a ton of elite talent at receiver. And then, like you said, he lost a really good kind of security blanket in Jake Ferguson at tight end, a guy that had been a really good player for them for a while. I think he played as like he played every year as they started as a freshman, really good player. But I thought he's got some talent. He's played a ton of games, which is really, I think, an underrated aspect of it is how much experience he has in big games. Like he went into Michigan and won as a freshman. That's not, I don't think it's maybe quite as intimidating an environment as some of the ones he'll play in at Florida. But it's still a lot of people in there. A really good environment to go in there and win is not easy. So he's done some good things, but then there is some bad too. And you hope that some of that was caused by him maybe trying to press because what was around him wasn't as good. I didn't think they gave him a ton of help in terms of play calling. I thought they really put a lot on him, and it wasn't super fair. But he does have some. He makes some mistakes himself too. So I think there's plenty of blame to go around up in Madison.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's two things before we start breaking down this film that people need to know about Graham Mertz. Number one, they go out and get an offensive coordinator that really has never done it in Brandon Ingram, ex NFL wide receiver. And me and my dad were watching a game, and they were still running the ball 9, 10, 11 times in a row. And you can't tell me an NFL wide receiver didn't have his play calling cuffed by the head coach there. What's his name? He got fired
Paul
midseason.
Chris.
Paul Chris,
Yeah.
kind of an alum there. He kind of a good old boy, and I think he just felt a little bit more comfortable. I didn't think he would ever see himself getting fired there. They have a new AD. Barry Alvarez was the guy that hired him. So, I think it's not, guys, they didn't go out and get an elite offensive coordinator. It wasn't a Dan Mullen scheme or anything like that. But it was one of those things where you have a brand new play caller that's never really played, called any big time plays during a game, and then also, the head coach kind of doing what he wanted to do, telling them, no, we're going to run the ball. They ran that poor kid Allen. He's like 18 years old into the ground.
Yeah.
They have another back out of Clemson. He was a Clemson transfer, and Wisconsin doesn't get a lot of transfers. He's okay, but again, when you're setting yourself up for failure, these guys like Iowa and stuff, they'll stack 8, 9, 10 guys in the box. They prefer that. So it was not a great thing. The second thing I want to say, and this is not me saying that like Graham Mertz didn't have a fair shake or whatever. Graham Mertz had COVID, and Graham Mertz got it bad. He was in the hospital for a couple weeks, missed some games, and then he had long haulers, and he was never really the same that season after his COVID deal. Now, he could have been still feeling some effects of that. In the spring here, it looks like he's back to 100%, but a lot of people forget that he was in the hospital for 2 weeks with COVID. It was bad. Like they were worried he wasn't going to make it at one point.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I mean, I think I remember hearing something about it, but I didn't really know the full extent of that. So that is an added element to consider for sure.
Yeah, and when you're an elite athlete like that, you've been around a bunch of them, Seth. When it does something mentally to them when their body's not 100%. So, those guys are used to being the best of the best, and when you feel like there's a chink in your armor, especially at a young age like 19, 20, 21, when you're supposed to be invincible, it's one of those things. So I'm not saying that all these mistakes are because of that. So I just wanted to lay that out there before people start bagging on them. But we're going to get into this film breakdown, and what we got here first, Seth?
Yeah, so I got a few good examples of some of the stuff he did last year, some bad stuff. We'll start with something I think Florida's, when you're losing a guy like Anthony Richardson, who just not even if he didn't run, the threat of him running controlled defenses, controlled the backside, especially of defenses. Those guys would be a step slow to try to fit up the run, because if they took off and got out of there, Richardson could pull it, take off, and we've all seen what he could do with his legs, right? So just his threat of being there kind of held the backside and slowed people down. Mertz isn't going to have that same kind of threat, right? I don't think he's going to the combine in a year or two and breaking all the records.
No.
I don't think that's him. So how can you control the backside of defenses, or how can you control the run game, all right, and make sure guys don't tee off? Well, you can do more RPO stuff. We saw Florida dabble with it a little bit last year, but it wasn't really Richardson's strength, I don't think. And it seems like they got away from it after running it early in the season. Here's one, Mertz against Northwestern, probably his best game of last year for sure. You can see them here, the run. As he comes up to fit the run, I pull it, throw it in that window, throw it on time, let him run after the catch, right? So this is something I think Florida will have to add to their offense a little bit more, at least go to it a little more, that RPO controlling the run game with the pass game, right? And so because you're not going to have that added quarterback element. And he was pretty decent on RPOs and play action, which they didn't run a lot of play action, which it's shocking to me with how much they ran the ball. So that kind of blew my mind. Here's just some drop back stuff. You see there, they got a deep in cut coming.
Yeah.
I think we have a back view of this. It's really good, but you can see him from here, right? He kind of understands what he's going to get coverage wise. He's going to look left first, make sure, kind of hold this here, and knows he's going to open up a window over there. Sees the coverage kind of move that way, hits the in cut, and Northwestern wasn't great. So some of these are take it with a grain of salt, but the decision making is good, and the use of your eyes is good here. So you can watch his eyes here.
Something we saw Richardson struggle with sometimes last year, that short slant pass off the RPO, and then also using his eyes, looking a safety off. And people don't realize how big that is. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, he was kind of at times with him last year. At times he would do it, and you'd see him. He had success, and then other times, it's just I think a lot of his stuff last year was inexperience. But you can see how Mertz. That's one thing you're gonna get here. This is a guy that started a lot of games, so he's going to be inexperienced. From everything I've heard and everything that's being reported, really smart guy, really understands football. So you see the eyes here. You're getting him to open this way. And now you're going to open a big hole right here for this end cut. Hits his last step, turns, lets it rip. Good placement here, allowing him to run after catch, right? It's not back on his back hip where he has to slow down and gets tackled. He can catch it on the run and go.
And they're running a zone concept there, correct? So he's
Yeah,
what he's
finding
doing, finding the
spot there.
hole in the zone, which is kind of some. And you see it here. Sometimes he tries to do some next level stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't work out. But this is something big. He knows the hole's going to be there, and he lets her rip. And it's not behind the receiver. It's about where you want it.
Yeah, it's about perfect, right? Allows him to just catch it on the run and keep running, right? What you don't want to do with those is slow a guy down, right? Here's another drop back, same game. This is kind of his best game. Interesting concept here. So a ton of teams run, and you'll see Florida runs it. They'll typically run it out of a 2-receiver set, where this first guy will run a snag. One of these guys will run to the flat. You could either flare it. He can go up that way too. Just I'm trying to get in this area of the field. And then a lot of times it'll be the second receiver here runs a corner. Well, they don't have that. They're going to actually bring it from the other side. So this is a pretty good concept here. This is after I think it's the first game after Chris got fired. But same idea. We're hitting the same spots on the field we would if it was the second receiver running a corner out. Same idea. But I thought this was a really good ball. An example of him, like some of the talent here.
And he's looking left, knowing he's throwing right or in the middle of this field.
Yeah, he's kind of confirming, right? What you can do here, especially in the red zone. You're probably thinking it's man coverage. So as I watch this here, confirm, right? That's man coverage. He's man on him. So now you know I got this space to throw the ball. I thought he does a nice job throwing this.
Oh, that's a beautiful pass
to the back of the end zone. Same receiver, but just understanding, okay, these guys are kind of bracketing this number one. This is a good play call too, but all the space I have back here, just got to throw a nice ball back there, a nice catchable ball.
And he throws it to a spot to where the defender has no chance at it.
Yes, he throws it out in front, right? If it's in the back hip, again, this guy might be able to play through it. Out in front, he has no chance, right? So good stuff. And here's against Iowa. They really struggled pass protecting, but this was one where you can see he's trying to do some kind of big time stuff where he throws with anticipation. So watch when he throws it. I think, right, this guy's got a deep out.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about.
Right, he's thrown here. He hasn't turned yet. If you look at the receiver up here,
and
he's not turned.
The ball's gone.
Yep, ball's already out of his hands. And he puts it in a pretty good spot, right? Because the coverage, like we said, this is not an elite receiver unit. So the coverage is tight, puts it in a spot where his guy can make a play on it. And the key here is he throws it now, right? The guy's not out of his break. So this is like next level stuff. This is next level anticipation. And he had to do that because he was under duress a lot this game, right? So, and you see there, as you see the referee come in, receiver didn't catch it, right? So,
and there was a lot of that too, guys.
Yes. So that goes down as an incompletion. Graham Mertz's completion percentage looks bad, right? But then there's things like that if you go back and watch, you see some of it. Now, but what worries me is he's a little inconsistent, right? So here's just a straight. He's got a little pressure in his face, but I mean, this is just a bad miss, right? So some of the inconsistency with his accuracy is concerning. Now
he is getting a guy coming.
Yes, you get a little bit of
free.
Olay here, a Matador block up front. And yes, the guy's coming free, but there's a lot of space to fit that ball, and he misses it, right?
And
just the bad thing, right? If this is, the elite of the elite, they're still hitting it. Like Bryce Young's still hitting this pass, right?
yeah, most
He's not
definitely.
quite there, but that's what worries me a little bit with some of his inconsistency. Here's another one where he just forces it. And this is kind of when we talked earlier about his supporting cast and he's trying to do too much. It's 3rd and 10. So, yeah, you want to throw it past the sticks, but, if you drop it here, he may pick it up, right? But just kind of forcing it in there. These are kind of the mistakes you'd see. Now, is this because feels like he has to press to make something happen? Maybe. And those are the things you don't really know until you see him, as a coach. You don't really know until you see him on campus. It's good to hear that they think he's very intelligent. So maybe he was just trying to kind of force the issue. And then here, he's just late with this ball, right? I thought here he didn't really need to move too much. He's got a decent pocket here, but I think he was seeing ghosts a little bit. Like, he's so used to having pressure on him that you're starting to get a a little bit late. But
yeah,
if he just kind of lets it rip right there, instead he kind of moves himself.
Yeah,
makes it, and now he's late on the throw. And when you're late, especially on these outbreakers,
it gets the defensive has
guys can undercut it, right?
Undercut it, yep.
So that's the worry is, can he clean this stuff up? I think it's fixable.
And truly, that top route is probably we can't see where the safety's at, but I'm guessing that's probably more open than what. Oh, maybe not. It's just, everybody's blanketed.
I don't think the decision's poor. It's just throw it now.
Yeah.
Instead
of,
I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, throw it now. Throw it right here as he's starting to break back out. Especially these guys don't create a ton of separation. So as soon as you wait, so that's just late on an out route and you get hit, forcing to underthrow it. I didn't put it on here. He gets away with one earlier where he's a little bit late and he doesn't get hit. He's able to kind of throw it over this guy.
Yeah.
He's able to kind of loop one in, and it's a tough throw, but he was still late. And it came back again, but right here they were able to get the pick. So I think that's the last one on Mertz. So we got some Southern Miss stuff here now, but yeah.
What's your overall feeling? You've broken down a lot of film. Obviously, he's not AR. He's not gonna those days of the 80-yard scampers down the field.
No,
right?
If he can do that, that would be something. I don't think that's in his game.
I don't think not he's got that statue, in the bag. Though, right?
No, he's not. That's what I think. Some people think he is. He's not a total minus. I think he's an above average athlete. Probably he's not elite, but I think he's above average.
He looks faster than Trask.
Yeah, I think so. He's got some escapability. He's not a total slug back there.
Okay. All right, guys. We are going to start with our new DC, Austin Armstrong, young guy, very aggressive. And this is going to be kind of fun for me because I did an in-depth review, so we'll see if I was just totally off the ball or if I was right about some stuff. So,
what were your impressions? I want to ask you, what did you think just after watching them a little bit?
Listen, as I watched, the run defense at times is not great, but it's not great because they're blitzing so much. Like he'll call a run blitz and it instead of to the left side, the ball will go to the right side. So you're going to have that. That's the gambling of being a play caller, right, Seth?
Yeah.
And the thing I did like, the corners are pretty good. You never know where the blitz is coming, and they got pressure with their interior guys, which was big. There's a lot of game film where I watched where that nose is literally in the lap of the quarterback, which is, would you say, the worst type of pressure for a quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's tough, right? Because if it's edge pressure, you can
loop in.
I can step up, and that doesn't really change, right? Because a lot of guys teach, take your drop, hit your step, hitch up, take off. So quarterbacks work on coming up through the pocket a ton. Now they'll work a little bit on the other stuff, but it's not as natural, and you don't get as many reps as when you got a guy in your face, and now you got to try to get out. And then if you're bringing outside pressure, now you're really in trouble, right? So that up the middle pressure is tough.
And then another thing I saw was their tackling was pretty good. Um, I just thought it was better than a lot of other teams out there, which is a big thing if he can bring that to
Yeah,
Florida, because Florida was not a good open field tackling team. Their corners are nasty. They will get up in the run game. They don't care. They'll stick their nose in and smack a running back. That's the one thing I like is their corners are super aggressive. But we will see. They did get burnt once or twice a game. It seemed like, and not blown coverage like Florida. They just got burnt.
yeah, right. It's a real risk reward thing, right? You get a lot of tackles for loss, and that's something that I wonder. There's something that Kirby Smart was really into, and I wonder if it's kind of the same year he was GA in there. He was really kind of focused on, and this was a few years back, really focused on tackles for loss and how a tackle for loss drastically flips the percentages of a successful drive in the defense's favor. Just one tackle for loss on a drive basically most of the time kills a drive.
Yeah, and they
So
had a bunch of sacks.
yeah, so they were top 5 in the country, I think, in sacks and tackles for loss. So and really good in a lot of defensive metrics. So why is that, right? You said it yourself. He's pretty aggressive. They are not afraid to blitz, which I think even if you're not great defensively, I think Florida fans would just prefer if you're not going to be great, at least be aggressive. Now they were able to at times do both at Southern Miss, um, and they do a good job of mixing pressures and coverages. And you heard him talk about it this week. He thinks they're pretty unique defensively because they don't just run one front and
Yeah,
one family of coverage. They'll mix both, so
and
mix up fronts, mix up coverages.
what I saw is they're kind of, especially during the later games, they're kind of doing what the NFL has started doing and creeping everybody up to the line,
Yeah.
so you don't know where it's coming from, and that really bothers quarterbacks, I bet. And then another thing I saw is what they will do. Now they we're off ball here corner wise,
Mhm.
and so but that's not all the time. The days of guys, just throwing it down the field on us over and over and over are gone. They like to play a lot of man belt buckle to belt buckle. They'll press on the line. Or sometimes I've even seen where there will be one defender back, like number 17, but the other guy is lined up on the far receiver, belt buckle to belt buckle in a man concept.
Yeah.
So it's very, very unique. And when you do that, you're not sure, well, it looks zone over here, but then my guy's lined up on man on a press coverage. So what's going
Yeah.
on here? And that's some of the things that is pretty incredible about this defense, right, Seth?
Yeah, they mix it up, and you'll see here, right? 3rd and 10, you decide to bring pressure. How many you're bringing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got 4 receivers out and they're out. So guess what that means? You're playing cover 0. So even though the guys are off, it's straight. There's no safety help.
Yeah,
It's straight man to man, and you get home with a blitz,
yeah, but
cause a fumble. They recover it, but still, you get off the field on 3rd down, right?
but
So
that can burn you if your corners
yes,
don't hold up.
and you'll see an example of that later from this same game. But blitz, I think you're going to see a lot more aggressiveness. Um, old DC at Michigan, Don Brown, one of his favorite sayings is solve problems with aggression. Austin Armstrong had a pretty good quote this weekend. He said, "We like to negotiate with a hammer."
Yeah,
So
I can't wait. Finally,
that's
we got somebody with some good quotes. Billy
that.
Napier's pretty dry.
Yeah, he's not giving you anything. So that was the interesting one. But I think that's what you want to hear from your defensive coordinator, right? That gets fans excited to hear that kind of talk. But here you're going to bring a blitz, and then you're going to have the one linebacker drop to kind of sit in the hole. And right,
Good.
if you win the rep, it's a great call. But it's man to man. You got to win, right? So he's
Not
able to
bad
rip the
coverage
ball out.
either.
No, good coverage, good throw even, but he's able to rip the ball out at the end here. Incompletion. But I think Florida fans would rather if you're not gonna play great defense, they'd rather you be aggressive, play man to man, give your guys a shot. I thought they did that at times last year, and it just got like LSU. They played a lot more man coverage and just got burnt, right?
Yeah,
And this is what happens right here. If it doesn't get home, and you don't win, then you can get beat deep, right? So
Yeah.
that's the risk that he runs when you're aggressive. But oftentimes, if you can cause that one tackle for loss, that one negative play, you can kill a lot of drives. Right here's one. This is from his first year. They bring a little bit of a creeper look where they end up bringing 4, but you see both the ends are going to drop here, where the guys look like ends are drop. We're going to get wide rushes here, and then 2 inside here. So this is a creeper, something Tony ran. But if it doesn't get home, you still got to hold up in coverage.
Yeah.
It's right here. Right. This was their big weakness at Southern Miss was giving up explosive plays. And that's
Yeah.
kind of that's with modern offenses, it may be worth the risk, right? In the risk reward game, it may be worth the risk of killing more drives and letting up a few explosives rather than just sitting back and letting these guys, especially in the SEC, when you've got some pretty good quarterbacks in the league and really good athletes at receiver and running back, where if you just play off, they can kind of dink and dunk you down the field, right?
Yeah.
So at times, maybe you need to take that risk, right? It
And-
doesn't always pay off, but if it does, you can get off the field.
And guys, Southern Miss did not recruit all that great. This is not elite level SEC talent.
And this is their first year, and this is the first year here too. You can see they were 1-8. UTSA was 2021, so UTSA, really good season. I think they finished in the top 25, had a couple NFL draft picks on offense, and they kind of held them down a little bit. Southern Miss they had a pick 6 in this game. Really played really well. Had a stop on 4th and goal. Really played well here against a team that was a lot better than them. So I thought I included that one in the video. And both these, Graham Mertz and Austin Armstrong's, I got video on Vanadore Films, my YouTube page, if you want more in depth for longer form. And you can see more of this game against UTSA where they're overmatched, but they are able to kind of play with scheme and aggressiveness and get them off their game a little bit.
Yeah. Also, they held up against Miami too, which was a team with should have blown the doors off of them. Everybody sees the score 7-30, but when you watch the actual game, you know, you can see that defense. I mean, Miami could not really move the ball down the field. Another game that they really I think the defense looked pretty good was the Liberty game. And what people don't understand, this is the one thing that kind of frustrates me about some podcasts. They say, oh well, it's not. Look at the stats. Well, the stats don't tell you in the Liberty game that Southern Miss's quarterback got absolutely depleted, had to leave the field, and they ran Frank Gore out of the Wildcat the entire rest of the game. They had a second string quarterback come in and he threw a pick right away. So they ran. They called it the Superback, but it's essentially the Wildcat. Imagine as a play caller, Seth. Oh well, the only offensive play I got is the Wildcat. How big of a handicap is that?
That's somewhat limited, especially if it's not what you planned. It wasn't like your game plan going into the game where you can, okay, this is our package. We're going to do a lot of this. If it's kind of forced by injury, then it's really tough because you maybe only had 2 or 3 plays that weekend for this package. And now you got to figure out, all right, how can we get through this game with this limited package? And then maybe if we have to expand it next week, we can. But yeah, in the middle of a game that's really tough.
Yeah, and that Liberty team was no slouch there, and they went into 4 overtimes with them. That was a 4-hour game. That was a tough one to just watch all in one day because I was taking notes. But go ahead. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that's the last one I've got on Armstrong there. Yeah, okay. So we're back at the top. So, my impressions of him are, maybe we can get rid of that. My impressions of him are that it seems, especially in terms of, I think Tony was a real analytical guy, really smart guy. Armstrong seems to be a smart guy as well, but he's definitely more on that aggressive side, whereas Tony was, I think, a little more cautiously aggressive. That's why he was so big on creepers and simulated pressures, because you could rush 4 guys and still keep 7 in coverage.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to bring pressure, right? And sometimes you got to play man coverage, and you got to bring more than 4. You got to bring 6. You got to bring. We saw one example. He brought 7. Sometimes you got to do that. You can't be too cautious on defense, especially with how good modern offenses are. So,
And
it's with that coupled with the kind of carryover in terms of knowledge of the scheme and the system, I think it makes it a really good hire for Napier in this time crunched window.
now, on purely just the film that you have watched, would you say it's an upgrade equal to Patrick Toney?
It's hard to say. I thought Tony was really good, and guys in the coaching world all say Tony's super smart, really good. So I don't know. I think Armstrong may benefit from Tony taking the growing pains for the defense in the year one. And kind of we'll get to kind of build on that, kind of on the backs of last year. He may come in and have a more successful first year. Stylistically, I prefer aggressive defense. So if it's going to be more blitz, more man coverage, I like that. But Tony was sound. He was a smart dude. I don't think it was too big for him. I think he would have grown into the role. So it's hard to say whether it's an upgrade, but I think stylistically, maybe it fits better with what.
More your flavor.
Yeah, maybe my flavor, and I think maybe even kind of the footprint, the recruiting footprint. Like a lot of guys that's in the South, there's a lot of man cover. A lot of teams play aggressive man coverage. A lot of guys, these elite corners, grow up playing in your face man coverage. So maybe stylistically it fits with the players a little bit more, but we'll see. It's I think defense, and this is the one thing I said at the beginning of my Armstrong video. Defense is more tied to recruiting than offense. The better your players are on defense, typically you perform better. The one stat that's going around during the Super Bowl, you looked at the star ratings of the guys starting in defense in the Super Bowl, it was all around 4 stars. Offense, it was like 2.5.
Yeah.
Because you can scheme around recruiting deficiencies a little more on offense.
We saw it with Mullen.
Yeah, defense. Eventually, we're going to have to play man coverage. And eventually, it's going to be my guy versus your guy. And if your guy's better, I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
So I'm not like predicting a gigantic jump defensively just because I don't know how much better is the personnel going to be defensively, because I think that is the main culprit. Is personnel on defense. If you don't have the elite personnel, it's not impossible, but it's a lot tougher to have an elite defense. So if the personnel can make a big jump this year, then I think maybe you can see a big jump in performance. But to compare the two guys, I think their backgrounds are obviously really similar. But I do like where Armstrong's coming from stylistically.
Okay. And I think fan wise too, I think that flavor of aggressiveness is gonna probably resonate to the fans a little bit better. There's nothing worse than getting dinked and dunked on, watching the game. And we saw that a lot. And I'll say this, and Seth, you might agree or disagree. Go ahead and let her rip after I say this. If a certain set of players are bad for 2 different DCs, I'm just going to say this. I'm not saying that they're bad players and they won't do things in the NFL, but if a group of players are bad under 2 DCs, it's not the coaching at that point. It's the players.
Yeah, I would say it's right. And I also cover South Florida, and they were really bad on defense. They fired their defense coordinator. They hired somebody brand new. All the same players pretty much. Now they had some injury issues, but a lot of the same players, and then they got worse the next year. So it's kind of, if you don't show that improvement, it's probably a personnel issue, right? Now you can get better. Now, in Florida's case, they got some young guys that they're hoping come in and play. So those guys can get better, but guys that have been around for 3 or 4 years, a lot of times they are what they are. And like you said, if it's going through 2 different styles, 2 different coaching staffs, maybe it's more of a personnel issue.
Yeah, most definitely. Would you say recruiting wise, that young guys will want to play under that new defensive scheme, super aggressive? Listen, we're going to let you hit the quarterback here for linebackers and the corners and everybody. Do you recruiting wise, do you think that helps?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, have you ever heard like an elite corner talk about how much they love playing 10 yards off the ball and
No,
bailing,
never.
right? Like they all want to talk about coming up and playing man coverage and locking people up and doing the right with the seatbelt or whatever. Like that's what they want to do, right?
They
Guys
want
want
to
to
be an island.
yeah, yes, Revis Island, whoever island, right? So I think that stylistically may appeal to some guys more. I think once they got on the board and talked with Tony, they realized the guy's smart, and he was. And this is where I'm, think it is maybe a personnel thing. I thought he was more aggressive at Louisiana when he was there. I thought they
I
played a little
agree.
bit more press coverage, um, but he seemed a little bit more cautious this year, and for
I will
whatever
agree with
reason,
that. Yeah,
yes,
I don't know if the team is really big into analytics now, uh, which is great. But sometimes as a play call, listen, and I am not. I play call pee wee football. Okay, guys, I run my son's defense. So this isn't like I'm not elite level, but sometimes the analytics just you got to throw them away, right? And you just got to go with your gut and send some pressure. I
yeah,
don't know why, because when I watched the Louisiana film on him 2 years ago or last year, I was like, hey, this is different. This is cool. He's aggressive, but it never came to Gainesville.
yeah.
I don't know why though.
Yeah, you watched him play Iowa State 2 years ago, or I think the 2020 season. Um, maybe 2020. Yeah, I think it was his first year as the DC. You watch them play Iowa State, and they're up. They are aggressive. They're in those receivers' faces. And you saw that at times at Florida, but it wasn't super consistent. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was just kind of let's make them earn it, because that is the other. There is some guys can do that. Like you watch Kentucky, they don't give up a lot of explosives. They make you earn your way down the field, and that can be frustrating. It's right the last 2 years for Florida.
I went to that
Watch
game.
Florida's offense against Kentucky the last couple of years. They just kind of kept a top on everything with their corner and safety. Just kept everything in front of them and said, "All right, go down the field and earn it." Sometimes that can work. I think if you're really good up front, like Kentucky's had some pretty good players up front, that can work. But for whatever reason, it didn't really work for Florida last year. And so I think this change in style could be helpful. Obviously, it sets you up with a little more risk, but the reward
Yeah,
could be much greater.
the pass rush for Florida was not very good too. So those corners are having to hold up a lot longer.
Yeah.
People don't understand when you have no pass rush, it's hard on them corners.
Yeah, that's what you want to play. And that's what I thought against LSU. They played a little more man. And then Daniels played out of his mind. It was just on point and hitting everything. And it was like, all right, we played more man and we got roasted in the first half, right?
Yeah.
So there's a risk, and especially if you can play man, but if you're not bringing a ton of pressure and your pass rush doesn't get there, well, now these guys got to hold up for a long time, like you just
Yeah,
said,
we,
and
we
that's
saw
tough.
what just happened with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might have been one of the things, and we don't know coaching wise. We don't know that Patrick Tunney may have just said, "Look, guys, this we got to play off ball because this crew, number one, we can't get no pass rush. When we do send somebody, they don't get there, and then the corners aren't great, and they're getting the top blown off of them. So we don't know. We're all trying to guess. But man, I do like this new hire and Armstrong. I'm super super excited about it. I like I said a little bit earlier, and you said the flavor is aggressive, and I think it's going to be a better viewing point for the fans too.
Yeah, I think most fans would rather listen. If we're going to be bad, let's at least be aggressive and maybe luck into a few. Like USC, really bad last year, but they played kind of a high variance style of defense to where we're going to try to rip turnovers constantly, and they kind of all bounced right for them. And they were bad on defense, but they got a lot of turnovers. When your offense is good, sometimes that's all you need to win games is just generate turnovers, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's one stat that's hard to guess from year on to year
yeah,
to year. It does change. So, all right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I appreciate Seth coming on. We'd love to have him back on. Maybe mid season we'll get you on after Florida plays some
yeah,
stuff. I don't think they're gonna show a lot of stuff during the orange and blue game. So
yeah, probably not,
um,
I wouldn't think, but
but yeah, let's try to set something up for like a mid-season, and we'll see what the offense looks like and the defense looks like, and we'll have you break it down for us. I appreciate you coming on.
hey, no
This was
problem.
awesome.
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, we will see you later. Thank you for watching. Go check out Seth's stuff. What's your YouTube page?
I'm on Twitter at Seth Varnadore. On YouTube, it's Varnadore Films, and that's where you'll find during the season. It's weekly, typically twice a week. Off season, it's kind of when something catches my fancy, and I want to talk or want to look further. So
Or like a new hire or something like that?
yeah, that those are. So I've got video on Armstrong and Mertz. Also have I think is a really good video with Bud Davis, who's a really good Twitter follow as well. J Bud Davis, breaking down NIL and how you should spend your money, how you should structure a collective, all those kinds of things. And he has a ton of really good information on how to value players, where you should be going to the portal, where you should be going to high school. So there's those are kind of the last three things for this year on there. But yeah, during the season it's a lot more active. But we still got some stuff in the off season there.
Yeah, thanks again, Seth, for coming on, man. That was so much fun. And if you really want to get nitty gritty deep in the weeds, and it's cold out, and you want a bowl of chili, and you want to hear Seth break down some film, go. That's what I do. I get home at
There you
3:30 in the morning, and there's nothing else to do. If I'm not creating content, I'm like, well, let's go see what Seth has on his uh his his his
there you
YouTube page.
My voice puts you right to sleep. Huh? Is that what?
No, no, not at all, bud. No, it's fun. It's good stuff.
I
Not a lot
appreciate
of
it.
people think that they're gonna like it until they start watching it, and then you're like, oh, there goes an hour of my day. I just watched film for an hour.
Yeah, we
That's
get
kind of
long in
fun.
there sometimes. Yeah, it's try to go as in depth as we need to. But
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks,
yeah.
Seth. Again, go check his page out. And guys, one last time, um, White and Sons Wood Creations. Have you seen their stuff on Twitter?
I have. It's insane.
The stuff is incredible. Handmade in the USA, out of Georgia. They are a small business. It's a husband and wife. They have a Twitch channel, so if you want a sneak peek to see what you're getting, you can literally watch your sign get made. So, like I said, thanks again, Seth, and we will see you guys later. This is Cody with F is for Fanatic, and we are out.